السلام.
وقت كبير مثل 10 أيام.
الحمد لله. إن شاء الله. صليت ولا لسه؟ صليت؟ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا. اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. This is in continuation of our class in Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni, who can lead the Salat. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to discuss where the Imam and the followers, where do they stand? Where are they supposed to stand in the Salat? Where does the Imam and where do the followers, where are they supposed to stand? Before we get started, are there any questions? طيب. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى. First of all, before we get started, it's always important. It's a reminder to myself and to the people that actually, go through this with us. It's important that when we study fiqh, sometimes a person can get caught up into the academic aspect of fiqh and other sciences in the religion. So for example, what's the ruling on this? What's the ruling on that? And you can get caught up in that, and then you can lose the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is important to understand that the purpose of studying fiqh or any knowledge of the religion, the purpose of which is to aid one in getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we can establish that connection with Allah. Because at the end of the day, death is waiting for everyone. There's no escaping death. Nothing you can do is going to allow any of us to escape it. So we have to remind ourselves all the time, when you're studying any science from the religion, do the best that you can to make sure your intention is to use that knowledge to help you get closer to Allah. And not to use that knowledge to belittle other people, or use that knowledge to put yourself in a higher station above someone else. Because that's a grave and egregious sin. If a person were to use knowledge of the religion to overpower other people, or to take advantage of other people. At any event, so before we get started, I just wanted to remind myself first, and the rest of the people that are the brothers here and the sisters here that are actually going through this book with us, inshallah. There's one thing that we didn't mention last week, and it was Qala Musannif rahimahullah. If a person enters into the masjid, the ruling on, let's say for example, you're praying Salatul Dhuhr. Let's say the Imam is praying Salatul Asr, and for whatever reason, you didn't pray Salatul Dhuhr. Is it permissible for him to be the Imam for you in that Salat or not? Or vice versa. These are some of the issues that some of the scholars differ on. However, what is largely known in a lot of the practice, and specifically in Hijaz or Saudi Arabia, is that a person, it doesn't matter if a person is leading a Salat, he's praying a Sunnah prayer, a person behind him can pray an obligatory Salat. And this is due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when Mu'adh bin Jabal led them in Salat, and then he left for Isha, and then he left and led the congregation of the Muslims in Salat to Isha, but he had already prayed Isha. So in that sense, he was praying his sunnah, a sunnah prayer, and the people behind him were praying a fard, or an obligatory prayer. And this is just something to, just to add to that. Like, so for tonight, faslun fi mawqif al-imam wal-ma'mun. Where do the imam and the ma'mun, where do they stand? Or where do they stand in the salat? Does anyone know? Where does the imam stand? In front of who? Those who's praying behind him? Wait. Where do the ma'mun pray? The ma'mun are the followers. Where do they pray? They pray behind. And where do they pray? Like, do they pray exactly behind the imam? Do they pray to the right of the imam? To the left of the imam? Huh? Right. So what if it's two people praying? Where does that person stand? So does he stand on the left side or the right side? So the one who's being led in the salat prays on the right side of the imam. Are you sure? Right. Can he pray on the left side? Can he stand on the left?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. What about you?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Tight. So we're going to talk about that, inshallah. يقول, but the Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, يقف المأمومون خلف الإمام. So the first position of those who follow the Imam in the Salat, they are to pray behind. Khalf al-Imam. They pray behind the Imam. وَيَصِحُّ مَعَهُ عَنْ يَمِينِهِ أَوْ عَنْ جَانِبَيْهِ. However, it is also correct وَيَصِحُّ مَعَهُ عَنْ يَمِينِهِ. If a person were to stand to the right of the Imam, then their salat is correct. It's correct for them to stand to the right of the Imam, وَعَنْ جَانِبَيْهِ, and also on both sides of the Imam. So let's say, for example, the Imam is leading the salat. As one brother comes in, and he stands on the right side, right? Then another brother comes in and stands on the left side. This is correct. This is what? This is correct. Meaning if the Imam stood in the middle, and one stood on the right, and another stood on the left. However, it is better that those two stand behind the Imam, but if they stood on the right and the left, levels. And we can look at this as we find لِإِبْنِ مَسْعُودٍ صَلَّ بَيْنَ عَلْقَمَ وَالْأَسْوَدِ. Ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he prayed between two companions, Al-Aswad wal-Alqama. وَقَالَ هَكَذَا رَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَعَلَ. And he said, and like this is what I saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam do. And this is a statement from Ibn Mas'ud. قال ابن عبد البر لا يصح رفعه والصحيح أنه من قول ابن مسعود. Ibn Abdul Barr, he's from the Imams of Hadith and also from the Imams of the school of Imam Malik. And he said that this particular narration لا يرفع. يعني, in other words, it doesn't go back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Rather, this is a position of Ibn Mas'ud. This is the position of Ibn Mas'ud. And Ibn Mas'ud was from the companions of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So then, when a person is praying, we have three positions that a person can stand in if they're praying in Jama'ah. What are they?
Three positions?
Three places for the followers to stand when they're praying. Where do they stand? Behind the Imam, ahsant, on the right. Listen. Not on the right, and then if not on the right, on the left. On the right and the left. Jani Bay, on both sides.
At the same time.
At the same time. So then, if the Imam is leading the Salat, there are three places that people can pray. Behind the Imam, to the right of the Imam, or to the right and the left of the Imam. Wale? Mumtaz. The next one. La qudamahu. It is not permissible for a person to pray in front of the imam. It is not permissible for a person to pray in front of the imam. وَلَا عَنْ يَسَارِهِ فَقَطْ. And it is also not permissible for a person to pray on the left side of the imam. So let's say, for example, the imam is leading the salat and someone comes and stands on the left side. If a person stands on the left side, this is not correct. This is not correct. Wale, is that clear? طيب. وَلَا فَضًّا خَلْفَهُ. And it is also not permissible for a person to stand one person, يعني فضًا, by himself behind the imam. So let's say, for example, there are two people praying. The imam is in the front, and the person that's praying with him is standing behind him. There's only one person. This is not correct. أو خلف الصف. Or a person is not allowed to stand behind the rank of the salat. Let's say, for example, a brother, the imam is leading the salat, and then we have a rank behind him. And then someone stands behind that rank, فضًا, يعني by themselves. This is also not permissible. This is not permissible. إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ إِمْرَأَةً. Unless it's a woman. In this case, a woman can stand by herself behind the imam, or behind the rank by herself. Is that clear so far? Right. وَإِمَامَةُ النِّسَاءِ تَقِفُ فِي صَفِّهُنَّ. If a woman is leading the salat, where should a woman stand if she's leading other women in the salat?
Shouldn't she be up front as well?
She should what?
Shouldn't she be up front as well?
Should she be up front?
Yeah.
I'm asking you.
No, I would assume that she would be up front.
She would be up front. طيب. الشندن. Huh? طيب. If a woman is leading the salat, then many of the scholars say that a woman should stand in the middle, also the saf, in the middle of the rank. In the middle of the rank, nadaban. Yani is recommended. It's not wajib. It's not wajib, but it's something that is recommended. Huh? Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
So the woman is in the middle. She has other women
To her right and to her left.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, and she prays in the ranks. Right. When is that recommended for a man to pray that way? We spoke about this. Wait, man. When is it recommended? Yeah, it's not recommended for the men to pray on the right and the left side, but it's permissible. But when is it recommended to pray that way? Does anyone know?
When none of them are the imam of that particular.
Listen to the question. When is it recommended or preferable, it might even be wajib, for a man to pray in one rank together? One straight line. When is that recommended to do? Yeah, I think back, because we covered this before. Any of the sisters know? Huh?
It's not the one where the imam has like the injury.
No, not with the injuries. Nope, not with the injuries. When is it okay, if you say injuries, what's the significance of the imam and two people stand to the right and the left in the same ring? When is that recommended? When should a person do that? First of all, nas'Allah salam wa afiyah. May Allah protect us not to be in that situation, but it's a bad situation to be in. When?
This is not during wartime, is it?
Not during wartime.
Of somebody who can't recite Al-Fatiha.
Not with somebody not reciting Al-Fatiha.
They can't lead it off. They can't.
That's what I'm saying. They can't.
Huh? When is the shit? When? Do you know?
Remind us.
All right. When a man... Listen to the question. The question is, when is it recommended for a man to stand... Remember, when we first started, we said that it's permissible for men to pray in 3 different positions behind the imam, or with the imam. Number 1 is behind the imam. This is the recommended way to pray. But it's also permissible for a person to pray on the right of the imam. And it's also permissible for a person to pray on the right and the left of the imam. Right? This is not the preferable way to pray. The preferable way, as this was the way that Ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, this was the way that he mentioned. However, this is not the recommended way. The recommended way is that people pray what? Behind the imam. Like, when is it preferable for everyone to pray on the same rank? And we're talking about the men. And we mentioned this before. Nobody. Like, when is it recommended for the men and for the men to all pray in the same rank?
All right, Sheikh, when is it recommended? We lost here.
Huh? You lost? Like, all right. So if you recall, when we first started covering the issue of praying, when we first started praying Salat first started going over the issues of the Salat. It's recommended in this case, if a man or if the men, for whatever reason, they were stripped of all their garments. Remember we covered that. If they were stripped of all their garments, they had no clothing at all, but the Salat is still in. The Salat is still in. If they cannot find any garments, and if they were to go to find garments, they would have lost. Meaning the time of the Salat would have left them. In this case, they have to pray in Jama'ah in one rank. The Imam would be in the middle, and there would be people to the right and to the left. This is the only time that is recommended or highly preferable for the men to pray that way, is when there's no garments. Now,
does the Imam have clothes on as well?
No one has clothes on. No one has clothes on. So somebody might say, this is a weird issue. Why would the scholars of Islam, and this book was written over 1,000 years ago. They come up with all types of scenarios and cases. You know, anything could happen. Anything could happen, but the benefit of this is to know that the Salat does not end. The Jama'ah, the Salatul Jama'ah, the congregational prayer is still upon us. Now, well there. Right. So the next one. وَيَلِيهِ رِجَالٌ. So, when we're praying in the Salat, first we have the Imam. وَيَلِيهِ, who's immediate? Now, this is not, but when you have the Imam, and then who's after the Imam? Yalihi al-Rijal. The men come right after the Imam in the Salat. And then after that, they say, Thumma Sibyan, and then the young boys. Thumma Nisa, and then after them is the women. After them is the women. Kajanaizihim. As if we were praying in a janazah, it would be the same process. The men in the front, and the boys, and then the women in the back, with regards to the Salat al-Janazah. Now, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَقِفْ مَعَهُ إِلَّا كَافِرٌ. So now, they're going to give us some. So usually when you study books like this, they'll give you the general principles first, and then they're going to throw curveballs at you and see how you process that information. So right immediately after that, it says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَقِفْ مَعَهُ إِلَّا كَافِرٌ. So let's say, for example, there's one Muslim praying, and a non-Muslim wanted to come up and join the rank with him in prayer. Is that considered a jama'ah? No. Why? Because he's not Muslim. So in this case, it does not count as a jama'ah. So it says, أو امرأة ومن علم حدفه أحدهما أو سبي في فرض فضلا. So then, if a person is praying and a man that's not Muslim stands next to him in a salat, this is not considered what? This is not considered congregation. Like, if a woman, let's say his wife, she doesn't know, she comes and stands next to him in a salat. Some kalam on that. But a woman, she comes and stands next to her husband in salat. It's still considered fadlan, as if he's praying by himself. And likewise, if a person has a hadith, let's say, for example, there's a Muslim praying next to him, but he doesn't have wudu. Right? then he is still considered to be praying what? By himself. Ahsan. And then the last issue, sabiyyun fi fardin. If a child, let's say below the age of puberty, if that child stands in the rank of the salat, is it still considered congregation or not?
Yes.
So the scholars differ. If it's an obligatory prayer, they say no. If it's a sunnah prayer, then they say yes. Well then, and Allah knows best. It says, وَمَنْ وَجَدَ فُرْجَةً دَخَلَهَا وَإِلَّا عَنْ يَمِينَ الْإِمَامِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يُمْكِنْهُ فَلَهُ أَنْ يُنَبَّهْ مَنْ يَقُومُ مَعَهُ. So now we have another scenario. Let's say, for example, a brother comes into the masjid. Everyone's praying in congregation, right? And he sees a space. Perhaps there's a space between two brothers. He can slide in there if it's a big enough space. Slide in. If there's a space, he can slide. Right? دخلها. Right? وَإِلَّا أَنْ يَمِينَ الْإِمَامِ. If there's no space, let's assume the masjid is packed. It's packed. We already mentioned that the Muslim cannot pray. The man cannot pray behind the rank by himself. Right? So what should he do? What's his option?
Tap somebody back with him.
Huh?
Call somebody back with him. If he can't get to the left or the right.
If he can't get to the left or the right, what should he do?
Call somebody back.
How do you call somebody back? Yo, coming back. You tap him. Nah. That's not a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's the situation you had, right?
Yeah, I made that mistake. I gave you an example of me making that mistake. Like, what do? The ranks are full. The imam is praying and he wants to join the ranks of the salat. What should he do?
And you go stand beside the imam.
Ahsant. Then he goes and stands beside the imam, on the right of the imam. Or the left?
The right.
The right. Ahsant. He comes and he stands on the right of the imam. طيب. فإن لم يمكنه فله أن ينبه من يقوم معه. And it says that if he's not able to do that, some of them say, all right, instead of touching a person, you can make a noise. Give some type of indication that somebody's behind you and they want to join the rank. So maybe that person will step back. Some say even kalam. You can say, I'm back here by myself. Huh?
Is that permissible?
Yeah. According to some of the ulama of the past, yes, a person can say something. I'm back here, right? فَإِنْ صَلَّ رَكْعَةً فَضًّا لَمْ تَصِحْ. All right, now here's an issue that some of the scholars mention that may cause some ishkal with some of the other ulama here, but they say, فَمَنْ صَلَّ رَكْعَةً فَضًّا فَلَمْ تَصِحْ. Whoever prays a rak'ah by themselves, and they're in a congregation, in the congregational prayer. Let's say, for example, there's one rank and the person prays behind the rank by themselves. Some of the scholars, particularly in the school of Imam Ahmed, their salat is not correct. There's a position that their salat is not correct. Lam tasih.
Now, when you say not correct, is that invalid?
That's what not correct means. It's invalid. The salat is not correct. وَإِن رَكَعَ فَضًّا ثُمَّ دَخْلَ فِي صَفٍّ أو وقف معه آخر قبل السجود الإمام صحت. Now let's say, for example, if everyone in the masjid is in ruku' and that person comes and make ruku' and they walk up to the rank, then this will be correct. They will have joined that congregational prayer. Likewise, if they joined the rank before the imam makes sujood, they will have made, so in the first case they would have made the rak'ah, in the second case they would have made the jama'ah. Well then,
Because they caught the salat before the...
meaning, so in the first case, he will have made the raka'ah, okay? In the second case, he will have at least made the jama'ah, the congregational prayer itself. Right. So the next part, فَصْلٌ فِي أَحْكَامِ الْإِقْتِدَاءِ. So right now, we just finished that part of where the imam and the ma'moom, where they stand. The next part here was really short. Question?
Yes.
Fadda.
It's two. I have a question from online and one. So, in regards to the person can say, I'm back here by myself, it doesn't invalidate the prayer because they're not yet in the salah?
Good question, mashallah. So the question is, if a person says, I'm back here by myself, she said, does that statement invalidate their salah? So, first of all, the person that says, I'm back here by themselves, they didn't enter into the salat yet. Once you make the takbiratul ihram by saying Allahu Akbar, at that point in time, speaking becomes haram for you. The ulama can make, or that person that's praying behind them can make the statement, or to make a noise, or give a gesture that you're by there, the person is by themselves, before they go in the takbiratul ihram. Now, what's the next question?
The next question came from offline. It says, it goes back to the person that's praying by themselves. The person is asking, if the child is not Muslim, is it as if the person is praying by himself?
If the child is not Muslim, is it as if that person is praying? How old is the child?
I can ask, you want me to get more information?
Well, let's assume both cases. Let's assume that the child is not of age, and it's an obligatory prayer. Then it's also like they're praying by themselves, according to the author here. And likewise, if the child is of age, then it takes the ruling of praying with a non-Muslim. Either, at any case, that person is like they're praying by themselves. Does that make sense?
I hope so. For the person that's on, I mean, it makes sense to me, but I'm talking about the person that asked online.
Like, Namshi, can we move to the next one? طيب قال المؤلف رحمه الله تعالى يصح اقتداء المأموم بالإمام في المسجد وإن لم يراه. So next issue is, can a person follow the imam if they don't see him?
Yes.
Huh? You say yes.
Yes.
MashaAllah. Can a person follow the imam if they don't see the imam? So it says, يصح, it is correct, اقتداء المأموم بالإمام في المسجد إن لم يراه ولا من وراءه إذا سمع التكبير. It's correct for a person to follow the imam if they don't see him, as long as they can hear the takbir. As long as they can hear the takbir. وَكَذَا خَارِجُهُ إِنْ رَأَى الْإِمَامُ الْمَأْمُومِينَ. And likewise, if a person is outside of the masjid, they can still follow the imam as long as they can see the people that are being, the followers of the salat or the imam. So, there's another issue here. When we used to live in Mecca, some of the ulama, there's an issue, there's a point of contention here. There are times in Mecca where people pray in the hotels across from the haram. So let's say Masjid al-Haram is here, and people behind the haram, they're praying in the hotels. Perhaps you could look out the window, you can see the Maidan, you can see the walkway or what have you in front of the masjid, but you can't see inside. And some people also praying out there. Some of the ulama, some of them say that this way of praying is not correct. Like in Lish, why is it not correct? Some of them hold the position that it's not correct because they can't see the ma'moom. First of all, they're outside of the masjid. They can't see the people that are being led, or rather they can't see the followers. And if you can see the followers, those followers can't see the imam. So there is some difference of opinion on that. But that's a strong position that some of the scholars hold now.
Now remember we talked about how if the imam or whoever's leading, if they leave off a pillar, how would that affect that if you can't?
So if the imam left off a pillar of the, so what do you mean exactly? Like,
for instance, like the one who's injured, like we spoke about. And if he's sitting or he can't stand like this, does that not affect?
If he depends on what if so, let's say he's the imamul hayy, the imam that receives a salam. If he is praying standing up, or is he sitting down, it's recommended for them to follow the imam in that, but it's not wajib. It's not wajib. No.
So therefore, them being able to see him
Whether he's sitting or standing in the position of qiyam. Is that what you're saying? So make sure we understand the question right. Your question is, what about those who follow the imam and the imam has an injury? The question, what type of injury is it? It might not even be permissible for him to lead the salah. So let's assume that it's an injury that will allow him to still lead the salah. Let's say he has an injury. He's only going to be injured for a short amount of time. Hopefully he's going to get better from it. Let's assume that he's the imam. He's not someone visiting into the masjid. All right. Once we get all that out the way, now it's permissible for this person to lead the salah. The imam, he has a short-term injury. He's not able to stand. But let's say he leads the salah. Once he leads the salah, let's say he's sitting down, right? It's recommended for the followers to sit down, but it's not obligatory for them to sit down, right? It's recommended. Now let's say he starts off. Let's say he starts off standing up. Let's say he starts off standing up in the salah, and then for the second raka'ah, he sits down and doesn't stand up. It's wajib that the people behind him continue to stand. This is what we spoke about last week, inshallah ta'ala.
Right, and that's what I get, but what I'm saying is that would have no bearing on whether or not they can see him.
As long as you can see the people that can see him. That's my point. So the issue here is, if you can see the followers and those followers can see the imam, then it's permissible to pray, and this is what we're talking about here. If you can see the followers and the followers can see the imam. Does that make sense?
But the followers must be able to see the
Yes. Someone from the followers must be able to see the imam, and you must be able to see some of those people that are following the imam. It has kind of like a chain, right? The issue comes in is, let's say, for example, we're in the towers, the clock towers in Mecca, right? You're in the towers praying. They have a big hotel, and inside the hotel there's a musalla that you can see outside. The problem with that, as some of the scholars mentioned to us, the problem with that is, let's say once you praying in there, there's a big space in front of you, and there's space in the masjid itself. You left off being inside of the masjid to pray in the hotel, and you're following the imam. Some of the ulama have an issue with this salah. There's an issue with that salah. Unlike Hajj, in Hajj, there's a different scenario here because it's packed, meaning as soon as you look outside, it's packed all the way back to the hotels, and everyone can see everyone in front. Even the doors inside the haram is packed. There's no movement at all. That's different. Whereas during a normal time, you'll see people, we've seen people during the year outside of Hajj. It's very empty. You can actually walk into the haram, but they'll still be praying in the hotel. Is that permissible or not? Yani fihi shay'a. Fihi nadar, as they say. Like, no.
If you are in, say you're in a masjid, it's crowded inside, you can't get inside, but you're outside the masjid. You can't see inside, but you can hear you can hear the check.
Why can't you see inside?
Because you're outside.
So maybe the doors are open. Usually doors would be open.
No, okay, I understand that part, but I'm saying I've been at the masjid where you couldn't see inside. The doors are open, you really couldn't see inside, you're way in the back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you can hear over the speaker. That's still permissible, right?
Shuf. Allahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Some of them say, in a case like that, if you can't see the imam or the followers of the imam, some of them say it's a problem. Right? That's like you praying out, you're walking down the street, they're praying in the masjid, and you just stood in the street and start praying with them. But you don't know what's going on.
But you can
hear it, but you can't see the imam or the followers. Some of them, but if you're inside the masjid and you can hear, that's different. And Allah knows best. Like, also, wayukra is hated for the imam to pray the salat and he's in a place high above the people that are praying behind him. That's something that is also hated. And it's also to hate it, to do tatawwu'ihi mawdi al-maktubati illa min haja. It is also hated for a person to, let's say for example, the imam is leading the salat, and after he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, he stands up and starts praying sunnah right in the same place that he prayed this obligatory prayer. This is something that is incorrect. There's something that is incorrect or hated. طيب. وإطالة قعوده بعد الصلاة مستقبل القبلة. And this is also another error that we see sometimes people make. Let's say, for example, the imam is leading the salah. And once he finishes the salah, he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and he stays in that position facing the qibla for after the salah. He stays in that position facing the qibla after the salah without turning around. This is something that is also hated. Type Lish, why? Why is that hated?
It's like you got your back to the people.
But why? What's the problem with that? The whole salat is back to the people. What's the issue?
Facing the qibla, then.
I mean, so what's the problem?
I mean, out of respect.
Out of respect for who?
The people.
The people.
No.
No.
It has nothing to do with respect. The imam is leading the salat, right? Once he finishes the salat, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and he stays in that position sitting down facing the wall.
So he's saying, okay, he should turn around to the people.
No, it's hated, meaning he should turn around to the people. But the question is, why is it hated? What's the problem with that? Does anyone know the problem with that? What do you think the problem is? Can anyone think of a potential problem?
Would that be kind of like disrespectful?
Like disrespectful? Nah. Anything else? Let's think of a religious reason that has to do with the salah. Let's think of an issue that has to do with our prayer. Why is that an issue? First, before we answer, let's make sure, does everyone understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Huh? Like, so he leads the salat. He says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and they're still facing the qibla and they don't turn around.
Well, the people don't really know what's going on. If he's facing this way, they don't know what's going on.
So what could possibly happen?
If somebody walks in, they might think they're still praying or what?
I said, so then we have a couple issues here. Number one, the people are still in limbo because for all they know, he might do sujood as-sahw. He might make another prostration or something, right? Or the people that are coming in on the salat, they don't know what's going on. Maybe he's still praying. And the people that are praying behind him, they're still questionable. Let's say, for example, if I led the salat, someone led the salat here, we said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, we stood there, still facing the qibla. What would you be thinking? The salat's not over yet? The salat's not over yet, right? And so because of this is something that is makruh. This is something that is hated. طيب. فإن كان ثم النساء لبث قليلا لينصرفن. And likewise, if the men are praying, and it's also a sign to show that during the times of the past, there wasn't really a partition between the men and the women in the masajid like we have today. The women would be behind the men in the salat, and the men would be in the front. And so for that reason, we have narrations that mention the worst rank for the men in the salat is the what? The last rank. And the worst rank for the women in the salat is the what? The first rank. Right. So it says here, فَإِن كَانَ ثَمَّ النِّسَاءٌ لَبِثَ قَلِيلًا. Let's say, for example, the imam is praying, and he gives the salams after the salat, and there are women behind, they say, لَبِثَ قَلِيلًا, meaning he should wait, or the men should wait before they move, hatta until the women, they move. So the women should leave quickly once the salat is over. وَيُقْرَأُ وَقُوفُهُمْ بَيْنَ السَّوَارِ. And it is also hated for the ranks to be cut off by a pillar. Let's say, for example, there's a pillar in the middle of the masjid, and there's a rank, and in between the rank there's a pillar. This is hated to have that rank there being separated by that. It's not haram, something that is hated. Something that is not liked. طيب. وَإِذَا قَطَعْنَا الصُّفُوفِ. This is if that particular thing breaks the rank. If it breaks or separates the rank. طيب. Right. We're going to cover, I wasn't going to cover this part tonight, but inshallah we will. right before, so the next bab, or the next chapter that we'll be covering is Bab Salatu Ahlul A'dhar, the people who have excuses in the Salat. So before we do that, Faslun fil A'dhar Al-Musqata Lil-Jum'a Wal-Jama'ah. So we already mentioned that Salatul Jama'ah is something that is what? Obligatory for the men. Al-Jama'ah, congregational prayer. And likewise, Jumu'ah. Tayyib. There are excuses, however, that can prevent a person from praying Salatul Jumu'ah or Salatul Jama'ah. So he says here, وَيُعْذَرُ بِتَرْكِ جُمْعَةِ وَجَمَاعَةٍ مَرِيدٌ أَوْ مُدَافِعٌ أَحْدَ أَخْبَثَيْنِ. He says that a person who it's permissible for a person to leave off Jum'ah and to leave off Salatul Jama'ah, the congregational prayer, and then they're going to mention a few things that what will allow a person to leave those things off. Number one, maridun. If a person is sick, then they can leave off the congregational prayer. لأنه صلى الله عليه وسلم لما مرض تخلف عن المسجد وقال مروا أبا بكر فليصلي بالناس متفق عليه. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he left off praying in the masjid when he was sick. And he said, Marru Abu Bakr. He said, let Abu Bakr lead the salat. فَلْيُصَلِّ بِالنَّاسِ, so that he can pray with the people. And this hadith you can find in Sahih al-Bukhari, and Sahih Muslim. But the next one he say, وَمُدَافِعُ أَحْدَ أَخْبَثَيْنِ. And if a person is preventing themselves from using the bathroom, if a person has to use the bathroom, it is permissible for them to leave off the congregational prayer and Jumu'ah. The next one, وَمَنْ بِحَضَرَةِ الطَّعَامِ مُحْتَاجٍ إِلَيْهِ. And if a person is served food, then this is also a reason to leave off the congregational prayer. وَمَنْ بِحَضَرَةِ الطَّعَامِ وَيَأْكُلُ حَتَّى يَشْبَعْ لِخَبْرِ أَنَسٍ فِي الصَّحِيحَيْنِ. If the food comes, it is permissible for that person to eat until they are full, or until they full. لِخَبْرِ أَنَسٍ فِي الصَّحِيحَيْنِ. And this is due to the narration of Anas ibn Malik that we can find in Sahih Bukhari. So then, these are some of the reasons that a person can leave off Salatul Jama'ah. وَخَائِفٌ مِنْ ضِيَاعِ مَالِهِ أو فواته أو ضرر فيه أو موت قريبه أو على نفسه من ضرر أو سلطان أو ملازمة غريم ولا شيء معه. Alright, here's a lot of issues they just mentioned right here. One of the reasons that a person can leave off congregational prayer is if they are fearful that they will lose their money. Oh, what do you mean by that? So let's say, for example, a person, right now, you're in the middle of work, you're stopping to go to the masjid, but you know you have to go to the bank first. You know if you go to the bank, you're going to miss Jumu'ah or the congregational prayer. So you pull over, and then you got a whole bunch of money in the car. You need to go to the bank to make the drop off at the bank. In this case, if you fear that someone will break into your car, any type of wealth that you have, if you fear that someone will take that wealth or what have you, then in this case, it is permissible to leave off the Jama'ah. It is permissible to leave off Jumu'ah or the Jama'ah in those cases. Now, they also mention, let's say, for example, you have a friend or a family member and something's going on, maybe they're sick, and you have to take them to the hospital, and it's time for the Jumu'ah, it's time of the congregational prayer. And you know that if you pull over to go pray, they're sick, something can happen to them. They could possibly die or what have you. In this case, you leave off the Jumu'ah and the congregational prayer and tend to your friend or family member. Oh, ala nafsihi min dararin aw sultanin. So let's say, for example, a person fears for himself. He says, you know what? The masjid is over there, the masjid is over there, and I got problems with some of those people that live in that neighborhood. And if I go over there, it might be a problem. And the person might be fearful for themselves. So in this case, it's permissible for that person to leave off that congregational prayer. Or even Jum'ah, if that's where he needs to go for Jum'ah, in that case it will be permissible for them to leave that off. طيب. أو ملازمة الغريم ولا شيء معه. And then likewise, ومن فوات رفقته أو غلبة النعاس أو أدى بمطر أو وحل بريح باردة شديدة في ليلة مظلمة. طيب. Some of this stuff we want to talk about again in more detail. But the next one, if a person is fearful that they will lose a friend or lose someone, or the person is extremely tired, غلبة النعاس, meaning like the way you be sometimes, Sheikh. Huh? If a person is extremely tired, they know that if they were to go to the Jummah or Jama'ah at that time, maybe they'll fall out because they're extremely tired, extremely exhausted. In this case, they have an udhr, they have an excuse in that case. طيب. And likewise, if a person is harmed by the matar, let's say, for example, it's a lot of rain. In this case, you can leave off in the severely bad weather. As they mentioned, birihin baridatan, if it's very cold winds, and it's night and it's dark, it's late and it's dark. In these cases, these are all situations and times where a person can leave off the congregational prayer. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about that in more detail during the next class, inshallah, because I'm sure people probably have questions like, oh, I never heard that before, never heard you do that, to the end of it. This is the fiqh of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullahu ta'ala. Any questions? Now, fadal. Go ahead.
Sisters? No. Okay. All right. First, with regards to what constitutes Jama'ah, right? Is one or more? Is that specifically one or more brothers, or two or more? I'm sorry, two or more brothers. Is that specifically brothers, or for instance, like if it's me, my wife, and my daughter?
Allah. Allah. It would seem like it could be, but Allah knows best.
Okay. And could you kind of elaborate on the hikmah or the wisdom behind when you said after you pray your obligatory salat and you shouldn't stand up in the same spot and offer your sunnah?
Right, Mumtaz. So some of the ulama, they mentioned that when you finish praying your obligatory prayer and you stand up in the same spot to pray again, people might join in behind you thinking that you're leading the salat again. Maybe this is part of the obligatory prayer. Let's say, for example, you're praying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then you stand up and say Allahu Akbar again. Perhaps everyone behind you will do the same thing. This is why it's recommended that once you finish praying your obligatory prayer, you slide off and you pray your sunnah prayer. But you don't do it in the same location. Now, any questions in the back?
Yes.
It's fun.
So the question from online, the person elaborated on what they were saying. They were saying that the children are not Muslim, but they are. And sometimes during the salah, they'll come in and watch or imitate the person. Is it still as if they're praying by themselves, even if they stand beside them? And is the salah accepted?
Is whose salah accepted?
The person that's praying, not the kid.
The parent, the adult? First of all, whether someone stands next to you in the salah or not has nothing to do with your salah. It's their salah. That's number one. Number two, what was the first part of the question?
They were saying that the children are not Muslim, but they are.
Okay, the children are not Muslim, but the parent is.
Right. One is a 1-year-old and the other one is 8.
So both of them are below puberty. Who said that? Children that are that young, they take the deen of their parents. How do you have a 1-year-old that's not Muslim and you're the parent?
They probably
I'm confused.
You kind of answered that already, right?
Yeah, it seemed like it, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know if the parents are Muslim. How do you have a 1-year-old that's not Muslim?
Probably the step parent.
Huh?
Probably the step parent.
Or maybe you're the step parent. Maybe.
They're not the person's kid.
Okay. But Al-Muhim, there's a whole different chapter about children under the age of puberty being Muslims or non-Muslims. This is a whole different chapter, whether they are believers or not. But just for argument's sake, whether they stand with you in the salat or not has nothing to do with your salat. That's number one. Whether they stand with you whether they stand with you in the prayer or not has nothing to do with your salat. It doesn't affect your salat. So I hope that answers the question, if that's the question.
And it's also, they still consider praying by themselves. I think that was the other.
Yeah, they will still be considered praying by themselves. Yes, they will still be considered praying by themselves, even if they were Muslim. Even if the kids were Muslim and they're 8 years old and they're under the age of puberty, you're still praying it's like you're praying by yourself for the obligatory prayer. However, if it's a sunnah prayer, then it's different. If it's a sunnah prayer, then it's different.
And it is accepted.
For the parent, what would be the reason why it wouldn't be accepted?
I'm just giving a question.
Yeah, there's no reason that would invalidate that salat. No. And plus, congregational prayer is obligatory for the men, not for the women anyway. No. Any other questions? Any other questions? Huh? MashaAllah, Sheikh. What was you asking me earlier?
Initially when we talked about when you went overseas and that transition.
Say that again?
When we talking about when I asked you about when
The
you
transition?
Yeah. When you went overseas.
What about the transition?
Basically, like I asked you about the first of all the process about when you decide that you want to go overseas, and from the moment you get accepted and how that works when you get accepted into the university.
So when you go overseas to study, how does the process work?
No, from the point that you decide to study and you get accepted.
So first, you have to apply. I don't know the process now, but when I applied back in 2004, I believe, 2004, you go, at that time, you have to go make Hajj or Umrah. And when you get there, you submit your application into the university. And then after that, you just wait to hear from them.
And I think the
So,
brother asked about the prerequisites.
The prerequisites, you need to graduate from high school diploma. You have to meet the age requirements. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. During that time, once you submitted your application, if you don't follow up, they might forget about you. So what we would do is, I bought a fax machine. I would fax on my application every day. Every day. To the point, there was a guy there, his name was Sheikh Omar, rahimahullah. He passed away. I would fax my application, then I would call. Here's me again. He said, listen, Akhi, stop calling. We got your application. And so I got accepted in the school, alhamdulillah. So Abu Sajid came after me. And so Abu Sajid said, what should I do? I said, look, man, this is what I did. I bought a fax machine, and I faxed them guys every day. So he did the same thing. He faxed them every day. Called. He had to get up 3 in the morning, fax them and call them. Did you get my fax? I just faxed you. I got it. So that's what we did. I don't know if that's the process now. I'm not sure if that's the process now, because from what I hear now, everything is online. You can apply online. I guess it's easier now. But for us back then, it was a little more difficult.
I mean, so is there a test or something
to get into school?
Right.
No, it's not necessarily a test. So if you get accepted,
I mean, because it has to be some sort of way. How do they determine
who's qualified to stay? You'll find that out after the first couple of years in the Arabic program. A lot of people. So in the Arabic program, you're in a classroom with a lot of people from all over the world, and They give you material, you study it, you learn it. If you don't learn it, if you fill out, they send you back home.
Simple as that.
It's that simple. If you don't make it, they're gonna send you back home. However, before we left, some of the mashayikh there, they said they do need to streamline the process when it comes to accepting students, especially from the West. Because you understand, when a person goes to study Islam and you finish school and you come back, you're put in a position of leadership over people. And the problem is, you may not have any life skills and experience yourself. So in essence, you have kids coming back, early 20s, you've been there since you were 17, 18. You go overseas for 6, 7 years, you come back, you're 25, 26, 27, graduate from overseas. And maybe you don't have the life experience to even really be able to help people in a practical sense. And sometimes in those cases, you may cause more harm than good. And so sometimes some of the mashayikh will talk about that too. But yeah, I mean, essentially, if you get accepted, you go. It's a process. No. Any other questions about that?
Is there a community something, but I can't see because what's the name?
What does it say?
The low battery thing is up. Is there a community meeting?
Is there a community meeting?
Oh, somebody was asking about a community meeting.
When is it?
Sunday.
Sunday. 1 to 4, 1 to 5? 1 to 5. Community meeting Sunday, 1 to 5. 4075 Lancaster Ave, inshallah. Right? Any other questions? You good, Shay? You good? No more overseas stuff? Huh? خلاص. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Is it Isha?
No.
تعدن يا شيخ. عدن يا شيخ.
13 minutes.
5 minutes.
So,
Stop the job.
it's still on? Yeah, it's not. I think it say finish.